Welcome to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman. Hope wherever you are and wherever you are listening, you are having a great start to your Tuesday evening. You know, I'm not even going to try. Thursday evening. I don't even know what day it is. Welcome to the Hammer Territory Podcast. My name is Shawn Coleman, as always, here with Stephen Tolbert. And Stephen, I'm just going to be honest with you. I know that we're doing a podcast, but I'm at a loss for words. The Braves lost tonight, a 3-2 loss in extra innings against the New York Mets. Was just one of the most disappointing and just embarrassing losses that I have seen this Braves team have in years. And I never thought that we'd get to this point this season, especially with how good we were last year for much of the season. Stephen, we're to the point now to where this Braves team is creating new ways to lose, and it's not fun to watch. But with all that being said, good evening to you, sir.
What's up, Shawn? Yeah, I don't really know what to say. I was watching that game. I was actually doing the recap for Battery Power. So, when you do the recap, obviously you have to pay attention to every detail. And, it just looked like it was going to be another one of these games where the Braves just couldn't score any runs. And, the Mets were going to squeak one across late and win a kind of a boring game 3-2. And honestly, that would have been better. Like, I kind of wish they just hit a walk-off home run in the ninth and sent us home with that feeling, because honestly, the game was miserable to watch. And then when it got to extra innings, it somehow got worse. Um, yeah, we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about Sale and all the stuff he did. But yeah, that was one for. I mean, somebody tweeted at me like, surely this is like rock bottom, right? Like surely this tonight is rock bottom. And my response to him, and I mean this, is, you know, maybe. I mean, we'll see what tomorrow brings, but like, the way this team is playing, tomorrow might be rock. I mean, yeah, I don't know what to say, Shawn. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about Sale and how good he was tonight, but and talk about the rest. But yeah, I don't I'm kind of at a loss for words.
Well, I'll jump right into the big thing that stuck out to me tonight is that it wasn't just, the comedy of errors at the end of the game, Stephen. It's what led to those errors. And to me, it's been the biggest thing. You could probably put it on the same level as, the struggles of Matt Olson and Austin Riley for different stretches of the season. But a huge reason why this offense cannot find any consistency is they just do not make enough contact when runners are in scoring position. One of the absolute worst teams. They have one of the highest strikeout rates in the majors when runners are in scoring position. And I think tonight, they struck out 5 times. I haven't found how to see the statistic yet, but I would not be surprised if the Braves lead the league in back to number of times they've struck out multiple times in a row with runners in scoring position. They did it twice tonight. So you wind up not being able to get the job done in that situation. And then the Braves try something new. They have Whit Merrifield in the fold now. He steals a base. They add that element to things, something they're missing badly without Ronald Acuna Jr. But then you get over aggressive. You have players trying to bunt when they're not supposed to bunt. The team not being able to execute now seems to be impacting this team's confidence in staying true to form, that they're trying new things. And that's what leads to this play that makes them seem incompetent. Like that's what stands out to me. It's a cause and effect because of you not being able to do what you normally should be able to do that should lead to success. You're now to the point of trying new things that you don't know how to do, and it leads to a worse than expected loss. That's what stands out to me from this game.
Well, if we're honest, like the Braves weren't like this version of the Braves team have never been great with like runners in scoring position, moving runners over, getting runners in. Like even last year, they just hit so many home runs last year that it just didn't matter. Like when you're scoring 7, 8 runs a game, like if you have a couple opportunities during the night where you had a runner at third with 1 out and you didn't get them in, nobody remembers it because you scored 7 or 8 runs. But when you're scoring 2 runs a night, which is what the Braves have been doing lately, every single time you have that situation, and the Braves have had it a bunch, where they have a runner on third, first and third, whatever, second, runner at second, nobody out, and you don't score that run, well, it's just magnified because you you can't afford it. And that's the difference between last year and this year. Last year they really weren't very, very good at it, but they just covered it up with so many homers and so many other runs that it didn't matter. And this year they're not. I mean, they're in the bottom third of the league in home runs. They've been one of the five worst offensive teams in baseball since about the middle of April. Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is a talent deficiency at this point, if we're being honest. Um, Tonight the bottom of the lineup had a bunch of chances with runners, sprinkled around. A couple of guys at the top had hits tonight, and they just couldn't get a hit, and they couldn't get a big hit, and they couldn't get a rally going. And I don't know what to say really. I want to get to Chris Sale because Chris Sale was awesome, and I want to get to some of the specifics of what happened in the 10th because there's been some stuff that's been tweeted out here in the last few minutes that I want to get to. But just overall, yeah, the offense is just miserable. It has been miserable for months. And it's leading to what you're talking about. It's just everything is magnified. Every runner you don't get in is magnified because you can't score any runs. And exact same thing tonight.
While the Braves may be struggling when it comes to even the simplest of concepts right now, one thing that you can keep simple is how to definitely help boost your nutrition each day, and that's including AG1 supplement.
Eric Kratz here from FT. I'm a former athlete that really pays attention to his routine. And AG1 every morning before my workouts is something that gets my day going.
Hey, Braun here. AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that delivers daily nutrients and gut health support, and it's backed by multiple research studies so you can trust what you're putting in your body.
Unlike other products which only test their ingredients in isolation, AG1 tests their formula as a whole.
Ready for this stat? 97% of people in a research study felt more energy after 30 days of drinking AG1. If I had to recommend one product to support whole body health, it's AG1, and that's why FT is excited to have them as a new partner. Starting your journey with AG1 is a win. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/foul. That's drinkag1.com/FOUL. Go check it out, FT fam.
Well, then, Stephen, as you mentioned, let's get to the one positive that stood out tonight. And that, of course, was Chris Sale. His first start in, I believe, 10, 11 days. His last start was more than a week ago, the Sunday before the All-Star game. And despite, giving up the home run to Francisco Lindor, who's been one of the best, he's basically been the big reason why the Mets have gotten back into the playoff picture. Chris Sale was once again looking like a pure Cy Young candidate, just absolutely spectacular. And he was outstanding. But that's what makes tonight even more frustrating when it comes to the offense is that you waste such a great performance in a big game from Chris Sale. But, hey, we could talk about the offense all night. I do agree the one positive tonight was Chris Sale, and it's good to see that with, the fact that he's getting more rest and he's, getting some days in between, he came off this long rest looking fresher than ever, and he delivered. He did his job. It's just unfortunate the Braves can't take advantage of it.
Yeah, I was curious to see what he looked like tonight, honestly, because he hasn't pitched in like 10 days. He pitched the last game before the All-Star break, and obviously he had the 4 days of the All-Star break, and then he didn't pitch at all in the homestand. He didn't pitch against the Cardinals or the Reds just because they pushed him back for extra rest, and then there was all the rain. And so this is his first start since the All-Star break, and he just looked as good as ever. I mean, 9 strikeouts, worked into the 8th inning. He could have probably finished the 8th. His last batter was a ground out, and he probably could have gotten the last 2 guys if he wanted to. Snit, I think, just went with some matchups, which is fine. But yeah, 9 strikeouts, slider looked good. Lindor got him for a 2-run homer, and Lindor might be the hottest hitter on the planet right now. And that was, that was it. That's all the Mets got. Mets had 2 hits, before we got to extras. And then, that last play where Laureano overran the ball is, it's hilariously called a hit. So I guess technically they had 3 hits, but yeah, Sale was unbelievable. And like you said, it really, really stings to lose these games with Sale because especially without Max, like you just can't afford it. You can't afford to lose these games. You can't afford to lose it when Sale goes, into the 8th inning, only gives up 2 runs. Like the other team only has 2 hits. Like you got to win that game. And, Now it's another 4 or 5 days, depending on how much rest they give him before Sale pitches again. And you got to squeak out some wins without your very best starters with Max out. So, great game from Sale. It was good to see after the long layoff. And like you said, it's a kick to the nuts that they didn't win this game, because you got to win this game against a team right behind you in the standings. Your ace goes out and pitches a really, really, really good game against a hot offense on the road. Like, you got to win that game, and they didn't. And so now they're in some trouble.
Absolutely. And the thing that stands out to me, Stephen, is that, again, you're just seeing things happen right now with the Braves. I know that it's a ton of reasons. Injuries to major players, other major contributors that just are not playing anywhere that you would expect them to, and now the players that you're having to play just being less talented. But the Braves before tonight went 9 straight games in which the other team scored the run. In 2 straight games, we've seen a big hit. Spencer Steers, 2-run hit on Sunday when the Reds played the Braves, the one in right field that Adam Duvall couldn't get, and then tonight's game winner. Both of those balls in play were under 100 XBA. That means that basically the way that those balls were hit, they had less than a 10% chance of actually being hit when they were in play, and yet they were round up, leading to 3 runs and huge results for the other team. You're seeing things happen to this Braves team that you've not seen in years. And we typically see the Braves stay pretty consistent. Doesn't really seem to affect them. But we're now starting to see it affect them a little bit. A team meeting, players only meeting. We never really heard of that for years when it comes to the Braves. And then tonight, one thing that I may have happened once or twice, but very rarely happens, there was some disconnect between Brian Snitker and his players in the post-game comments. I'll let you give the details, but the big point that I'm getting at is that these things happening that are just so uncharacteristic for this Braves team, it does seem like it's impacting them, and it's leading, to some, kind of, eyebrow-raising moments right now for the team, even off the field.
Yeah. So if you didn't see it, first of all, count your blessings if you weren't actually watching this live, because this was brutal. This was tough to watch. So it's extra innings. Obviously, it's Manfred ball, so you get a runner at second to start the 10th inning. Laureano was on second because he ended the 9th, and Orlando Arcia starts the top of the 10th. He bunts Laureano over to third, which I have my problems with playing for 1 run when you're the road team and you're talking about Manfred ball, because 1 run is almost kind of like the given. Like, I don't really like playing for 1. Like, I get it. Orlando Arcia is up. He's, arguably the worst hitter in baseball this year. So you can justify it a little bit, and you maybe be able to justify that, Pierce Johnson can come in and shut guys down and strike guys out and get out of the bottom of the 10th without giving up a run, which he should have done if Laureano catches that ball. But I don't love playing for 1 run. But anyways, that's what they did. Arcia bunts. Laureano goes to third. Okay, all well and good. The first pitch, and then Jared Kelenic is up. The first pitch of Kelenic's at bat, the Mets pitch out. And as the pitch is being thrown, Jared Kelenic is squaring to bunt, and Laureano takes off. And so obviously it looks to everybody watching that some sort of squeeze play is on. And to the Mets, obviously the Mets thought something like that might be on, so they pitch out. Kelenic pulls the bat back because he sees the ball is so far outside. Laureano, you can see the panic in his eye. Like, they immediately pan to him. He's got like his eyes are as wide as they've ever been. He's panicked because now he's just in no man's land. He gets picked off. They throw back behind him. He gets picked off third. And of course, the Braves don't score anything that inning. So obviously disaster. You can't have that in extra innings. You have to at least score 1. So after the game, they asked, of course, that's going to be the number 1 question. The first question they asked Snitker was, what the hell just happened on that play? What was called? Snit said that nothing was called. He didn't have any sort of play on. He didn't have any sort of squeeze on or bunt or suicide squeeze, anything. He said it was nothing called, that it was, it's just something the players did, and he called it unacceptable. Bowman used the word livid. I watched the post-game press conference. He was livid. I mean, that's an accurate description. He was very, very mad. And then they went to Laureano and asked him, what did you think there was a squeeze play on? And Laureano said, yeah, there was a squeeze on, and that's why I took off. And so now everyone's confused because the manager and the right fielder just gave two different answers. So the beat writers go over to Kelnick because, if Kelnick confirms that there was a squeeze on, then we really got a problem. But then Kelnick takes blame for the whole thing. He says there was nothing called. He squared to bunt on his own, and it appears as though Laureano took the fact that he was squaring to bunt as a sign that he needed to take off. And he was too aggressive with taking off. It was a pitch out. There was no way to get the bunt down. And Laureano gets thrown out. So, yeah, just a massive miscommunication. I guess, Kelnick has been in a really, really bad funk for a while now. His numbers have cratered. He was 0 for 5 tonight. I guess he just thought, maybe I can get a cheap hit and a cheap RBI by squaring the bunt. Laureano, I guess, still being relatively new to the team, didn't know what was happening, so he took off. The Mets pitched out, and that's all she wrote. So, I mean, just a disaster, like just an embarrassing, like AAA, and not even AAA. This is like high school level stuff that just shouldn't be happening. And yeah, it literally probably cost the Braves a game. Obviously, the next inning they had just an incredibly dumb error that ended up actually costing them the game, but just painful. I mean, just brutal baseball to watch. And it's going to be very interesting to see the fallout the next couple of days, after what has been easily the worst stretch of the season for the Braves.
Agreed. And of course, if there's one silver lining, this, I don't know how much this is going to really impact, the decisions that Alex Anthopoulos makes at the trade deadline. We've talked in depth about many different perspectives that possibly could be considered. But one interesting tidbit that did happen off the field, and it's not the first time that we've seen the Braves connected to this player, but Zach Eflin, who pitches for the Tampa Bay Rays, a pitcher who is over the past few years been the latest example of how good the Rays can be. Taking a pitcher who really wasn't all that successful before he arrived in Tampa, and then now he's become a pretty successful pitcher, a pitcher who has very good control, has very low walk totals. The Braves are, for the second time that I've seen this season, appear to be one of a few teams that are interested in Eflin when it comes to one to target at the trade deadline. But Stephen, I'll get your thoughts on this. To me, I like the idea of them targeting Eflin, but I don't necessarily like doing it right now because pitching is, I know that a starting pitcher would be nice to get, but he seems to be more of an off-season target with the level of pitcher that he is. So I wouldn't mind getting him, but after tonight, and especially with the fielding and offense, both position players, especially in the outfield, is where we need to focus. But what are your thoughts on the potential interest the Braves have in Zach Eflin? And, does it really make sense to you to go after that level of a starter right now?
I've always liked Eflin. I thought he's been underrated in Tampa. He's always been a high strikeout, low walk guy, which are my favorite types of pitchers. If I could only look at one number, I would look at strikeout to walk ratio is kind of the one number that I care about most in terms of pitching. And Eflin's always been, strong in that category. So I've always liked Eflin. If you look at him this year, he's got a low 4s ERA. But he's got a FIP, he's got like a 3.6 FIP, a 3.7 xFIP. His expected ERA is in the 3.3s. So he's a good pitcher. I mean, he's a good, the velocity has definitely come down as he's gotten a little bit older. He's still not, I think he's only 30. Hold on, I've got it right here. Yeah, he's 30. I think contractually he's got 2 years left. They are somewhat expensive years. He signed a 3-year, $40 million contract with Tampa before the 23 season. So he's got 24 and 25 left under contract. I think it's like 13 million and 18 million or something like that for the next 2 years. Obviously this year's halfway over, so it wouldn't be that much, but so yeah, he's a guy that's got multiple years of control. That would help you next year, of course, if Max doesn't come back, if Morton doesn't come back. You still don't know really what you're going to get with Strider. You still got a bunch of young guys. So I could see it. I mean, you can't have too much pitching. The Braves are razor thin right now with Strider and Max Fried out. So I'd understand it if they did it. I'm with you. I do think offense is probably a bigger need, but you know, the way this team scores runs, Alex might be like, you know what, we gotta give up less runs because this offense is so broken. I don't know. We'll see what they do. Rumors in the Braves that's usually an indication that it's not going to happen. Like if you hear the guy's name in a rumor, that usually means it's not going to happen with the Braves. That's just how Alex moves. He's always moved pretty silently. So we'll see if this means anything. But I've always liked Eflin. So if they went and got him, I certainly wouldn't be upset about it. Obviously, it's relative to the cost. It's an interesting rumor. We'll see if anything comes of it. We also don't know if Tampa's going to sell. They're kind of right on the edge of could probably do either. So that's another factor. But I like Eflin. So if they went and got him, I'd come on here and tell you it was a great move.
And to me, the other thing that stands out, and I agree with you, it's one of those things where if we got Eflin, I wouldn't necessarily, have negative thoughts about it. But again, I just feel like if we're going to use assets right now, it makes sense to go get that offensive player. And we could talk about it being an outfielder. We could talk about it being wherever. But I'm starting to really tonight just kind of, really put back into the focus for me of just if we could get someone who consistently had productive at bats at the top of the order. Jared Kelenic had about a month-long stretch where he was great, but he's a very streaky hitter. When he's not going good like he has over the past 3 weeks, we see the offense. I know that he wasn't that good before the All-Star break, but we were still good. But this Braves team, I think it would do them so much good if they could just have someone who consistently had productive at bats, taking walks, working the count, what have you, in front of Riley Ozuna and Matt Olson. And I know that may not necessarily be a player who's underperforming his expected statistics and has good, power potential. But that type of player really seems to be something that would help this team out. If you remember, we talk about how this year compares to 2021. If you remember, we've talked about it, Stephen. Jorge Soler was excellent with his power out of the leadoff spot. But the big reason why he was such a big benefit to the offense without Ronald Acuna Jr. was because of how good he was at getting on base. So you'd love to have someone who can get on base and get the power, but I just need someone top of the order who can consistently give productive at bats. That trait seems to me to take on a bit more significance as we get closer to the deadline after watching games like tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, man. I'll take anything at this point. Like I sent out a tweet. I can't remember if it was yesterday or earlier today, honestly. But basically, the Braves have the three of the five worst offensive players in baseball in their lineup. If you look at WRC Plus, there's been like 217 players that have had over 250 plate appearances this year. And if you look at the bottom five of those 217 players, three of the five are Arcia, Rosario, and Duvall. And obviously, all three of those players play for the Braves pretty regularly. And I mean, that's just brutal. That's just brutal. And right now you got a rookie who's been called up to take Ozzy's place, who looks a little overmatched, if we're being honest. Kelnick has just been in a nosedive for about a month. Matt Olson, the one bright spot other than Sales, that Matt Olson did have a couple of hits tonight. I think that's 2 games in a row where he's had multiple hits. So maybe, there is a small glimmer of life there. But I'll take anything. I'll take any sort of offense. I mean, literally, the Braves have 3 of the 5 worst offensive players in baseball, in all of baseball, in their lineup on an everyday basis. I mean, that's just crazy. Like, there's just not a lot you can do with that. Like, there's just a severe talent deficiency in the lineup right now, and I can get excited about a lot of players at this point just because of how low the bar is to clear. So yeah, I mean, I listen, I'll take what you're talking about. I'll take a high OBP, high power guy at the top. That'd be fantastic. I'll take it. I'll take it right now. But I mean, honestly, I'd just take anything. Any sort of upgrade to what they have would be tremendous. I think it would help boost the confidence. I think it would get the vibes going. I think the vibes are as bad as they've been in the Braves clubhouse in a long time right now. And, Alex, sometimes you make a move just to get the vibes back, right? It's not just about the on the field stuff, but like to get the energy back, to get the confidence back. Like, I think the Braves need to move. They need something. They need some sort of jolt of energy. And, I don't know if Alex can afford to wait till Tuesday, because at that point, I mean, the Braves could have lost their, ninth game in a row or eighth game in a row. I mean, that's how bad this is. Like, the Braves they are collapsing right in front of our eyes, and they need something. They need some sort of jolt. Chris Sale's not going to pitch again for another 4 or 5 days. Like, they need something big to happen, and it's going to be to see what it is.
Absolutely, and it's so unfortunate with how well they ended the end of the first half with going through the series that they did against potential playoff teams, going 6-4. All that good vibes is washed away. The offense, again is back to struggling. All this different stuff, and you also have to think to yourself, Stephen, and I'll end on this note. The other thing that I'll say is that you also just have to think, I don't know why it's taken this long, but now that we're seeing there clearly be disconnect between Snicker and the players, it getting out in the media about the players only meeting. I'm fine with the players only meeting, but my point is that you're just seeing uncharacteristic aspects of this team on and off the field now, and you're seeing it happen pretty frequently over the past, week or so. You just have to wonder if this team's just kind of like, okay, enough is enough. I know that a lot of stuff isn't working, but that does not need to shake our confidence to where we're just missing out on every opportunity. You just have to hope at some point that it snaps in place to where enough is enough. We need to continue to go through the motion, even if the results are not there, and eventually something's going to break our way. Now, that's much easier said than done for this team, but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. In some ways, Scott said this the other night. It's good that it's happening before the deadline because you can go make some moves. But like, we've known for a while now that the Braves need more talent. Like, I mean, ever since Acuna and Strider went down, Harris, now Ozzie, now Max, like, it's very, very clear this team needs more talent. Like, obviously it's not easy to make trades and you can't force teams to sell if they're not ready to sell. But like, we're in trade, like, Miami just traded away a reliever to Arizona tonight in the middle of the game. Like, it's officially like trade season. Like, Alex, if you're going to do something, technically the team is still the top wild card for at least one more day. If you're going to do something, there is a sense of urgency to this thing now. Like, it is very real. We are in the middle of the fire. And if he's going to make a move, it would be really nice if it happened very soon because this team need something.
We call them emergency podcasts for a reason. Well, right now with this Braves team, it may not happen often, but those emergency sirens are going off like crazy right now. So I agree with you. I would love for us to give a bonus podcast over the next 24 to 48 hours with an emergency podcast about a move that we could see really helping to jumpstart this offense. But Stephen, I know that we've had this same conversation time and time again. It's always fun having it with you. I'm just hoping here soon that something breaks to where more positive discussions can occur. But for this edition of the Hammer Territory podcast, do you have anything else as we wrap up?
No, I really didn't want to do this podcast. If I'm being 100% honest, this was as bad a loss as I've sat through in a long time. I mean, I would really have to rack my brain to come up with a worse loss with what's on the line and how bad they've been playing before this loss and the team meeting and all that stuff. Like, all that added together, this was brutal. And I just need I need tonight to be rock bottom, and I need tomorrow to like turn the page, start climbing out of this thing because that was brutal.
Well, we're going to be here with you every step of the way. I agree with Steven. Sometimes, hey, we always love, being able to talk about the Braves, but there definitely are times where it's much tougher than others. So that tonight would be one of those nights. But for Stephen Tolbert, you can find him at B_outliers. Just a wealth of great perspective when it comes to the Braves. My name's Shawn Coleman. You can find me at StatsSAC on Twitter, Hammer Territory across all forms of social media at Hammer Territory, part of the Foul Territory podcast, our family of podcasts. And also, of course, you can find it wherever your podcasts are available. Just download and subscribe, and that's where we'll be for free. For Stephen Tolbert, my name's Shawn Coleman. I'm going to say it this way. I usually say go Braves. I'm going to end it with this. I hope that better days are ahead, and better days are ahead soon for the Atlanta Braves. We'll talk to you again soon here on the Hammer Territory podcast.